whether hops are bitter or not isn't really a thing.
Because my thought is like you have your Centennial hops, your Mosaic hops, your Citra hops that are overly bitter, and people are bringing beers down.
That's not how that works when you're brewing. You set a target. The beer will be so many bittering units, and that determines the hop rate that you use to get there. So if you have hops that have 5% alpha acid, which is the primary bittering substance, then you might use twice as much to get a beer of a particular bitterness than you would of, say, Centennial, which has typically 10% of this alpha acid in it. You just use half as much. The relative bitterness of the different hop varieties isn't actually a factor at all.
But I was trying to say that like if you can find a hop that is only slightly bitter, it lends better than to a pale ale or to a. I guess our premise here is gateway beers, like trying to get from an IPA to a imperial IPA or a stout to an imperial stout. Like, you know, I mean, again, I started drinking beer a couple years ago that was like fancy beer. I still have like, I still bought a 12-pack Busch Light like 3 days ago.
Of course.
So
I had Corona on the boat 2 days ago.
So the thought is like, when we're talking about slightly less bitter hops, we're talking about there are certain hops that give off less of that hoppy, piney flavor, and that are better for IPAs than hops that are better for pale ales because they give off less. They're less flavorful. Maybe they're more palatable. Just talking about it.
I don't know if there was a question there.
It's those are words.
So here, let me
from a brewer's perspective. I mean, you're feeling part of the elephant. You know what I'm saying? Like the blind men and the elephant, and like it's a wall. No, it's a brush.
That's a penis.
I muted you because we're about to head out. But I want to ask you one quick question because obviously it's something that I'm curious about, and you're very knowledgeable. Oh no, you're unmuted. I muted them. Fuck them.
These are warm.
So for me, obviously, you know, I look at IBUs, but I don't correlate IBUs to how much bitterness is in the beer. That's
a good observation because it's not the ultimate measure of how bitter. It's a measure of how much of a bittering compound is in the beer. But if you have Bud Light, a Bud Light type beer, and you put 50 BUs in it, it's going to cross your eyes with the bitterness. But if you put 50 BUs into, for instance, the porter that we were drinking, which is already in the neighborhood of about 30 BUs, another 20 BUs, it would still be a pretty rich chocolatey beer with maybe a little bit more tilt towards bitter chocolate. So it's partly about like the heft of the beer. So BUs are merely, you know, it's one factor.
So why would a brewery or a bar talk about IBUs in regards to beer when, like for me, like the big thing I think of is I think of 120 from Dogfish Head, which is a high IBU, but it's not very, I'm hearing music.
It's also super high gravity.
So how would I go trying to coast from a brewery looking at these IBUs? Like, how do I decide what is going to be a super bitter beer or a super bitter IPA versus a non-bitter IPA?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of like you go in a brewery and they say this is our porter, and you really. Okay, but the only thing you really know is it's probably going to be really dark brown, but it might be pretty bitter. It might be pretty sweet. So it's just like one little piece of the puzzle. So the BUs they only tell you so much in the same way.
So you're just more reliant on what the brewer, the bartender, the manager says in regards to what the beer is.
Yeah, best thing is, you know, if there's just even a short description of the beer. That's what I try, and every description I write for the beer, I try and, you know, like the executive summary, as short as I can make it.
The 20-second elevator pitch.
Yeah. What's it going to make you feel like? when you drink it. You know.
Right.
So sometimes the description is a little dopey. You know, like I made a strong Scottish ale. You know, wee heavy, and the description is like getting hit by a cannonball made out of malt.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
So before we go, obviously, I want to give a shout out because we talked about Drafting Table earlier.
Yes.
Their Scottish ale that they just came out, it's Lock and Loaded, I think is what it's called.
Oh, that's a strong name.
I haven't had it yet.
I like that name.
So I ran into Kristen over at Drafting Table, and as much as I tried to tell her I'm not drinking beer, she still gave me a sample.
That's gonna happen.
It was an amazing beer, and I know it's on tap over at Maze in Ypsilanti. So if anybody's over in the Ypsilanti area, go check Maze out. They also have a happy hour where you can get 24-ounce M43 for like $3.
Damn.
So if you're an M43 drinker and you're looking to get tanked,
Head on to Depot Town.
in Depot Town.
Must be downriver.
No, Depot Town. It's in
Drafting
Ypsilanti.
Table. I'm going there early tomorrow afternoon when they open. I'm actually what we were talking about earlier with the whole dog friendly thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually dog sitting for the next month, and I'm real excited to have a dog. But I'm also real excited to drink beer. So I'm gonna take that dog to that patio, and I'm gonna drink beer tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shout out to Drafting Table over there, Aaron and Kristen. Kickstand, once again, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you taking the
Thank you
time
for
out of your
having me.
day.
You guys have been
Coming out
awesome.
tonight.
Thank you so much for bringing all this delicious beer. You can find it in stores as well as at Kickstand over in Commerce Township. That's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Better on draft. Have a good night.
Peace.
What was that, Rob? Let's try that one more time. Have a good night.
Peace.
Peace.